It's like World War III has started. How dare they? How dare they earn more money? How dare they? What must they be thinking to earn money? Why should they be financially independent? Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and that you had a great week. To all of my house guests, come in, make yourselves at home, make yourselves comfortable. If you're passing by and you'd like to become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I'm Chez, this is Chez M0i. Welcome to my place.
This is Tabloids on Trial.
It is a scandal, one that's rumbled on for more than 20 years and counting, damaging lives.
I had an inescapable abuser.
Sowing distrust.
I come a recluse.
And shaking an industry to its core. Apologies by some and over £1 billion spent by two of Britain's biggest newspaper groups on legal fees and on payouts to thousands of victims whose lives have been invaded by phone hacking and unlawful information gathering. And yet for many, the pain endures. Not least for a prince who continues to fight.
This is a David versus Goliath situation. The Davids are the claimants, and the Goliath is this vast media enterprise.
And it's not just the rich and famous.
This wasn't salacious gossip. We were just normal people who got involved in a horrific incident.
Recent claims go even further. Burglary.
The whole door had been taken off its hinges.
Eavesdropping on people's live phone calls and blagging their private information. As one courtroom battle concludes, other Fleet Street giants face trial. Now accusations of cover-ups against some newspapers.
It is clear to me that we were not told the full truth.
Have reignited this controversy.
The Yard covered it up.
Giving some new drive in their fight for the truth.
I don't think there's anybody else in the world that is better suited to be able to see this through than myself. I'm trying to get justice for everybody.
On Thursday evening, as I watched Tabloids on Trial with great interest, as you would expect, I made one or two observations. The British tabloid press has to be one of the most insidious, unscrupulous and corrupt industries that has ever existed in the modern world. Although the documentary was promoted around Harry, it highlighted how truly unaware I was of how other high-profile individuals, as well as ordinary members of the public, were literally hunted, hounded and violated by these criminals with absolutely no consideration for the lasting damage that had been caused.
When the 16-month inquiry came to an end in 2012, its key recommendation for a new, tougher industry watchdog was effectively ignored by the papers, with concerns over press freedom.
We do have an independent regulator, but most of the press are not in any way attached to it. And the regulator cannot function if none of the organisations that it is intended to regulate actually join it.
Many say the tabloids under the spotlight had got off lightly, but then a new case brought fresh scrutiny.
And I went paranoid. Didn't want to speak to nobody.
Can you describe what's happening there and how
Just
it makes
straight away it comes into my mind, you know, people can take it as much as they want. The one thing they can't take it away from is memories like that. Them times were like best times in my life until I started getting hacked and that.
In the 90s, Britain was gripped by Gascoigne, widely regarded as one of the best footballers England has ever produced. Many labelled him a genius.
In England, it's brilliant becoming famous, but once you're famous, they just try and knock you down as much as they can.
As the 90s came to an end, injuries and excesses had taken their toll on his career. There was divorce and struggles with alcohol.
I finished playing football, started drinking heavy. I was in a bad way, to be fair.
He soon found himself in the crosshairs of the tabloids, whose fascination with his fall from grace led to the repeated hacking of his phone to get stories.
And I went paranoid. So I went out and bought 6 phones. So I just kept on changing numbers. I thought, right, I'm getting hacked again. So I'll go and buy another mobile phone and get rid of that one. And then I got so scared to speak to someone. I'd check into the hotel room and use a hotel phone. You know, and you think, God, when's it going to stop? Yeah, and then I come a recluse. Didn't want to speak to nobody.
With every story published, his suspicions turned on those around him, even those he was closest to.
I was just speaking to my mum and dad, and just them. The next day it'd come out in the papers. So I went mad. I said, what the f*** are you speaking to the papers for? I said, well, I haven't spoken to them. I said, you have. They're the only 2 I've spoken to. I love my mum and dad. So to think they thought they were hackers was good.
What did headlines like that do to you?
Oh, horrific. Then eventually you end up reading the story and think, oh, here we go again. I don't trust anybody anymore. It's sad that, really.
In Paul Gascoigne's case against the Mirror newspapers, his legal team submitted 18 articles about him, published in the early 2000s. The newspaper group admitted all of them were the product of unlawful information gathering. Throughout that time, he'd been struggling with addiction and been treated in rehab.
Do you think that the illegal actions of the tabloids
Oh,
exacerbated
yeah,
your
definitely.
alcohol problems?
I'd ring my therapist and say, listen, I feel like I'm going to have a drink because I know I'm getting hacked again. And he just said, no, Paul, you're just paranoid now. And I said, no, listen, I know I'm getting hacked. So I ain't stupid. It's happening again.
Listen to how this ex-tabloid journalist reflects on how Paul Gascoigne was treated.
Working for a different newspaper, The News of the World, Paul McMullen remembers how Gascoigne was pursued.
Is there anyone that you now regret targeting?
Yes, I do regret targeting Paul Gascoigne because A, he was a hero of mine. He was actually quite a sensitive soul. I remember one particular evening he drove up to visit his dad in Newcastle, and we turned up, there were like 5 paparazzi sitting outside his dad's house. So he was convinced that his dad or his wife or his kid had rung up the papers to get like £5 to tell him where he was. And so he went and stayed in a travel lodge on Christmas Day on his own. And I was like, oh, Gazza, man, it was us. We're just listening to your phone, you know. It's not your dad, it's not your daughter, it's not your... I mean, suspicion's terrible.
How do you feel about that now?
I actually feel terrible, you know, and we kind of destroyed his life. I'm not saying we made him an alcoholic, but sometimes at the screws we went too far.
That is just one example among many. Other individuals, like Hugh Grant, had his flat broken into. Charlotte Church, her mother suffered a mental breakdown.
This inquiry wasn't just about the news of the world.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Good morning, sir. Our first witness is Mr. Hipwell.
Thank you.
I, James Hipwell, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare...
The entire tabloid industry was under scrutiny, but just one journalist was willing to blow the whistle on unlawful behaviour at another paper. James Hipwell was a columnist at the Daily Mirror.
I was sitting next to the showbiz journalists, and I saw phone hacking going on from the middle of 1999. I would say that I saw it happen every day. There were 8 or 10 journalists on the show business desk, and most of them were engaged in phone hacking.
Can you tell me who was your editor at the time, and did he know about what was happening?
My editor was Piers Morgan. He was somewhat obsessive about celebrity news. There was no question that he knew what was going on, because he would ask them, you know, where did this story come from?
And did you get the impression that this was just a technique used by Mirror Group newspapers?
No. I mean, on one occasion, I remember great laughter in the newsroom. And so I asked what was going on. And this journalist he'd hacked into the voicemail of one of these Spice Girls. And he knew that one of his opposite numbers on the Sun was going to be hacking the same phone and would have picked up the same message, and he didn't want that journalist to hear the message, so he just deleted it.
The Sun deny this. James lost his job on the City column after he was caught insider trading. Lawyers for the Mirror papers at the Leveson inquiry tried unsuccessfully to discredit him, suggesting these claims were his revenge. Some might accuse you of having an axe to grind because you lost your job at the Daily Mirror.
That didn't really come into it. I mean, I see the Mirror now as a criminal enterprise. My column was part of that criminal enterprise. I accept that. I know that, you know, we needed to be reined in. And it's not often in your life that you get an opportunity to look back at what's just happened and reflect on it, and try to put things right.
But James was a lone voice amidst a clamour of denials from Mirror Group bosses.
By Almighty God, that the evidence I shall give...
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Denials that 2 High Court judges presiding over civil cases against the papers have since found to be untrue.
Is it true that there was phone hacking going on amongst the show business team?
No, not to my knowledge.
The inaccuracy of this statement has been established.
I have seen no evidence to show me that phone hacking has ever taken place at Chelmsford.
Ms Bailey knew or turned a blind eye to it from about the end of 2006.
Are you able to help us again as to whether or not it's true?
I'm afraid I'm not.
I have already found that she was involved in it, and she clearly had knowledge of it.
I have no reason or knowledge to believe it was going on.
But did you see this sort of thing going on, Mr. Morgan?
No.
You sure about that?
100%.
There is compelling evidence that the editors of each newspaper knew very well that voicemail interception was being used extensively and habitually, and that they were happy to take the benefits of it.
I think the police need to investigate this, because we could have a situation where a number of important witnesses to a government state-backed British taxpayer-funded inquiry have lied, and that's just simply unacceptable.
Perhaps the most shocking revelation to come out of Prince Harry's court action is that these unlawful tactics continued during the Leveson inquiry.
Morgan, as he did during the Leveson inquiry, still denies all knowledge to this day.
It is a common thread that runs throughout, a legacy of paranoia and broken relationships. And none have played out more publicly, perhaps, than those affecting Prince Harry.
Harry's girl to dump him. Seems as though they knew something before I even did.
As well as phone hacking, Mirror Group newspapers commissioned private investigators to blag the flight information, credit card details or phone bills of Prince Harry's then girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. What sort of feelings does a headline like that create in you?
Gives him paranoia and fear and worry, concern, distrust around the people around you. Clearly, a headline like that has absolutely no public interest, whatsoever. There's a big difference between what interests the public and what is public interest. So, you know, what happens in my private life between myself and then girlfriend is exactly that, between us.
Other victims of hacking that I've spoken to have described the paranoia that it creates. Do you identify with that?
I think paranoia it's a very interesting word because, yes, then it could be paranoia. But then when you're vindicated, it proves that you weren't being paranoid. You know, same with my mother. You know, there is evidence to suggest that she was being hacked in the mid-90s. Probably one of the first people to be hacked. And yet, still today, the press, the tabloid press, very much enjoy painting her as being paranoid. But she wasn't paranoid. She was absolutely right of what was happening to her. And she's not around today to find out the truth.
Does your mother motivate you in this legal fight?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that motivate me.
While it's never been proven in court that Princess Diana was hacked, the past remains raw. Some will question whether there's an element of payback here too.
No, I know that it is clear now to everybody that the risk of taking on the press and the risk of such retaliation from them by taking these claims forward, it's clearly not in my interest to do that. Look at what has happened in the last 4 years to me, my wife and my family, right? So that was a very hard decision for me to make, which is how bad is it going to get?
Some people would say that you know, you taking on these high profile battles, but that actually attracts more attention onto you.
There is more than enough attention on me and my wife anyway. They pushed me too far. It got to a point where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I don't think there's anybody else in the world that is better suited and placed to be able to see this through than myself. It's still dangerous, and all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read. And whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is, and these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
And that last part is what appears to be the sticking point for some commentators who gave their views on the documentary.
Let's move on to the next story. Prince Harry has spoken out in a documentary called Tabloids on Trial. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on ITV last night. He was basically saying that he will never bring Meghan back to the UK for fears that she could be attacked. Let's have a look at what he actually said.
All it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read. And whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is, and these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
You said in court documents that the Queen, or Granny as you call her, supported your claim, what do you think she would think of what you're doing now?
I think she would. She's very much up there going, see this through to the end, without question.
Yes, it's the first time we've seen Harry speak out like this. I mean, what was your thoughts when you saw it?
Sympathetic, because of course it is an issue for very high-profile people. The truth is that Harry and Meghan do live in one of the most dangerous countries in the world.
Yeah.
I think there are fewer attacks from guns and acid and things in the UK than there are in the United States of America. And they do travel to other parts of the world where security, I mean, they're planning, apparently, a world tour, so that it is an issue. But I'm sympathetic to that. The programme itself was about tabloid journalism, and there were people like Harry, Hugh Grant, Gaza, and others who may have been affected over the years. And really what he was highlighting there, what we picked up on, is this feeling that he still has, he's got to protect Meghan, which is understandable given his own family story.
Do you think it was an overreaction, him saying that, with regards to coming back to England?
I think it's very difficult to know, because they've obviously got to be the ultimate judges of whether or not they feel safe in the country. They've obviously had the big row with the government here about who would provide them with security were they to come to the UK. They want the state to. The state is saying, I'm not so sure. So there's a big row about their security there. I think it's quite hard on the one hand to say we're going to go to countries all over the world where security is actually far more of an issue than it might be in the UK, but we're not coming to the UK. And I think that as much as there is huge criticism of Meghan Markle, there is, whether people like it or not, whether people think it's fair or not, I don't know whether would that translate into someone. I mean, I guess from his point of view, it only takes one absolute moron.
And don't forget where he's coming from with regards to his mum dying and stuff like that. So there's that history. So yeah, it's worrying. It is worrying.
It's very difficult. High-profile celebrities. I mean, I often think about John Lennon. You know, people. It's not just political people like President Trump. It's actually just people. Celebrity attracts, I'm afraid, people with real problems who do terrible things.
And MPs. Politicians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just remind you how safe the UK has been, especially in the last couple of weeks. And since President Trump was mentioned in that last clip, some of you won't need reminding that in the last 8 years, 2 UK politicians were assassinated by deranged members of the public while they were conducting their weekly surgeries. You know what had me really shaking my head? Harry expressing genuine concern about the safety of his wife in the UK is apparently more far-fetched than a 20-year-old American who tried and failed to assassinate Trump, having Kate on his hit list, allegedly, and staying with Kate for a few moments. It would appear that she is now going off on her summer vacation. Now, you guys are going to have to forgive me for my lack of understanding, but how can someone take a break from doing absolutely nothing for over half a year? If you have the answer to that question, please feel free to leave it in the comments section below. And continuing with the British royal family.
Next, the royal family's finances are in for a bumper rise, with the monarchy in line to get an extra £45 million next year. The release of Buckingham Palace's financial accounts also reveal a plan by the royals to buy 2 new helicopters, despite the King's championing of environmental issues. Meanwhile, Prince William has declined to reveal his tax bill as the Prince of Wales, despite his father doing so when he was in the role. Well, our royal editor, Chris Shipp, joins me now. So, a lot to go through here, Chris. What is behind these figures, first of all?
Well, look, today for the royal family is a bit like budget day for the government, when we get to look under the bonnet and go through the books. In this case, the book is the Sovereign Grants report. Now, the Sovereign Grant, for anyone who wants to know, pays for all the official expenditure of the royal family and their travel. Now, it's made up, as you can see here, of 25% of Crown estate profits. Now, the rest goes to the Treasury for kind of government spending. The royals are actually going to take less percentage, a lower percentage of the Crown Estate profits. It's going to go down to 12% next year. But despite that, they're still going to make more money. Why? Because the profits from the Crown Estate are going up exponentially because they've done amazing deals with some offshore wind farms. So what does that mean? They get an extra £45 million into their coffers next year, which takes the total of the sovereign grant to 132 million. And that extra money is being used for those final couple of years of the renovation works on Buckingham Palace. People might know it's going over a decade of works there. Next question, what's it all spent on? Well, lots of things. There's like repairs and functions and visits and all the rest of it. Travel always piques everyone's interest. So here we go, the Royal Train. There was a single use of the Royal Train, and that cost £52,000, believe it or not, to go from Windsor to Yorkshire and back. Now, the next one on helicopters is quite interesting, you see, because of the King's passion for the environment. The royal family spent £2 million on helicopter travel. That's about £6,500 a flight. Now, the royal family's taken delivery of 2 new helicopters, but we're told they can take the maximum amount of sustainable aviation fuel, 50%, so it makes them a bit less polluting. And their aides say it's the only way they can get around the place, because they've got to get to lots of places lots of the times. Just finally, the royal Bentleys, the state Bentleys, these cars you see carrying the King and Queen around, they're being converted to run on biofuels, so waste fuel.
Okay, interesting. But Prince William's finances, Chris, do they come from a different pot of money? What's changed since his father had them?
It's a different pot of money. This is the Duchy of Cornwall. That pays for the heir to the throne, just as every Prince of Wales has done, by the way, since 1337. But whereas his father used to tell us how much income tax he paid when he was Prince of Wales, which was 5.9 million, Prince William's decided he's not going to tell us what he pays in income tax, and his office just said, well, look, we don't have to do it, so we're not going to do it.
All right. Chris, thank you.
So, William has decided to break with tradition yet again and refuses to reveal how much he pays in income tax. Clearly, this is a privilege he's grabbing while food bank queues get longer and longer with every passing week, and children will have less to eat over the summer because the only meal they get is during lunchtime at schools, which have now broken up for the holidays. Furthermore, I find it really hard to understand how a single use of the royal train cost around £52,000. That is double the average yearly salary in the UK. Now, when it comes to William and Harry, the contrast between the two brothers is evident when you consider that only one of them is prepared to put his money where his mouth is when seeking to expose the disgusting practices of the British tabloid press. The objective being to protect the privacy rights of ordinary British citizens. While the other brother, who works alongside that same industry, is very happy to throw his brother and his sister-in-law under the bus, he has every intention of putting his money as far away from his mouth as possible. Another example of Harry putting his money where his mouth is in relation to the support of military veterans through the Invictus Foundation. Here's the announcement that was made earlier this week.
Job in winning. It's going to be amazing bringing the games back to the UK, hosting them here in Birmingham, which is the entry point back from Afghanistan and Iraq for so many of our wounded people in the UK. So really fantastic to be here today. Really proud of everybody who's worked so hard to put this bid together to build what's going to be an amazing experience, not only for the Invictus community globally, but for the community here in Birmingham too. So let's raise the flag.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really don't know how I feel about this, but I have to trust that the foundation is acting in good faith. We have 3 years to see what the security protocol will be when the games comes to the West Midlands. Hopefully, suitable and satisfactory arrangements will have been made by then so that Meghan will be able to accompany her husband without any type of threat to her safety. As much as I wanted Washington DC to win the bid, the decision has been made, and I'm sure that, as with previous games, the outcome will be mega successful. And as we've seen with the royal family on this side of the Atlantic, a lot can happen in 7 months. Who knows what can happen within the next 3 years? So I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible. But you know me, I love to talk, so let's just see how far this goes. This programme, documentary, Tabloids on Trial, it was scheduled for a run of 1 hour 15 minutes. I deliberately, talked about Paul Gascoigne at the beginning, just to show you how balanced, in my opinion, this documentary was, because it was not all about Harry, even though it was trailed as such. I guess because he's more high profile. But these are well-known people, these other victims, and they were people that were not well known at all. Paul Gascoigne, I wanted to show how evil this industry is. By his own admission, he fell into alcoholism and addiction because his career had come to an end, and obviously, feeling, my head, from what I could gather, feeling inadequate, washed up, no focus on him anymore, no one wanting him anymore, feeling unwanted basically, which I guess was the basis of his downward spiral. Now the press took advantage of that. I mean, you already saw what transpired. I say that to say that the focus, it was not all about Harry. It was well balanced as far as I'm concerned. But you know what these guys did afterwards? They did their analysis the next day, these commentators. And for out of the whole 1 hour 15 minutes, all they talked about was that Harry said this is the reason he's not bringing Meghan to the UK. That's all they talked about. And I thought, the man literally told you how people are treated in this country when it comes to the UK press, and all you could take was that he said he's not bringing his wife here. And you're so affronted. It's so offensive to you. Why doesn't he want to bring her? How dare he? And then the accusation was levelled at him by various quarters, saying that, well, you're the one who caused the rift with you and your family, not the tabloid press. Remember, guys, when it was locked down, nobody heard from Harry and Meghan for the best part of a year. I think it was a year. Okay. They were making their way across the Atlantic on their freedom flight. You saw that on Netflix. Okay. They were trying to set themselves up because, remember, according to Harry in the Oprah interview, he was cut off by his dad financially. So their priority was to get established in a different country. They made their exit. Various factors, people argue they were pushed, they were forced out. At the end of the day, Harry, if you look at interviews from him when he was younger, before Meghan came on the scene, he always wanted to leave. He did, he always wanted to establish himself out of the royal family. Okay. Him meeting Meghan and all of that happening subsequently was an opportune time for him. So, it could be half and half, pushed and taken the decision to... It doesn't matter. It's immaterial. The fact is, they've gone. 4 years, over 4 years ago. Okay, over 4.5 years ago, this happened. The man does not want to bring his wife back to this country for the reasons he stated. And you know what made me laugh? People were saying, oh, how can he say that when they're living in one of the most dangerous places in the world? I literally told you last week in my video, last week's video that I did, where someone had posted on their social media that Meghan had come into the garden centre, or nursery as they call it, to buy some plants. The persons who served her didn't even know who she was. That's how safe she feels where she lives. She was not hounded. She was not asked, you know, she didn't have cameras in her face. She feels safe enough to go to a garden centre to pick up plants, knowing that, you know, there may be a chance that she'll be recognised, but she would not be able to do that here. I said that last week. I did a video a while back. I think it was it 2023? It was quite a while ago when I went down to Kensington. I went into Whole Foods because she used to shop in Whole Foods when she was living at Kensington Palace. And I relayed the experience that she had when she was recognised in Whole Foods and she was literally hounded. She's not safe here. She is not safe here. You've got, you know, the Netflix documentary talked about the police commissioner at the time said that there were serious threats against her life by all these neo-Nazi and racist organisations. She is not safe here. I've given you examples of incidents that have taken place in the last 7 to 14 days. Random attacks, random knife attacks. Okay, a soldier got stabbed a few days ago outside his barracks down in Kent. And immediately it was, you know, it was not terror related, but the person had mental issues. So if something were to happen to Meghan and Harry while they're here, immediately they're going to say, oh, it's the person had mental issues. Don't attribute everything that happens to someone having mental issues. Some people are evil. Some people are evil. Okay? Evil intentions. I just think people in this country are so naive. Britain is not the safest place in the world, okay? There are countless incidents that happen here every day. Take the 3 women that were killed with a crossbow in their home. Okay, it was a mother and her 2 daughters. The husband, the father, he happens to be a well-known horse racing commentator. And the day when they had a racing event on the TV, I'm not a fan of horse racing, but when that happened, they had to do a minute's silence for him. He's well known throughout the horse racing world, commentating world. He's lost his entire family because of a deranged individual who was known to the family, but that's beside the point. He had a crossbow. Where did he get a crossbow from? They say, oh, you know, you can't get access to guns or whatever. All we have in this country is very strict gun laws. I believe we have the strictest gun laws in the world, with good reason. But just because we have the strictest gun laws in the world, do not be so naive as to think that no one has a gun in their possession in this country, illegally. Okay? You think it's difficult to get hold of a gun if you really want to, if you know the wrong people. Don't be naive. And this is what is dangerous, the naivety of people making assumptions because we live in England that we're safe. No, we're not. No, we are not. When Harry references acid attacks, a few months ago, someone threw acid in a woman's face. It was his ex-partner or something, jealousy as usual. And then he ended up, because he got it splashed in his face, he ended up, I think they found him in the Thames. Just went up to her and threw acid in her face. One of the presenters of Loose Women, Katie Piper, she had the same thing happen to her. Acid thrown in her face. She's permanently scarred. You know, she wasn't well known before that happened. We are not safe in this country. Say what you want to about America, but when you compare the 2 countries, they are incomparable. It's like comparing apples to oranges. America is way bigger than the UK. And by the same token, it has more people. So obviously you're going to have more crime there if that's the case. Because statistically, that makes sense. But not everywhere in America is dangerous, just like not everywhere in Britain is dangerous. People need to use their common sense. If Meghan feels safe where she is, she doesn't need to come here. You know, why do these guys have to explain themselves all the time why she's not coming here? She doesn't have to come here. It's a free society. She's not obliged to do anything that these guys want her to do. She's a free citizen. The other thing that was levelled at Harry was when Rebecca Barry asked him whether, you know, he should kind of reconsider these legal battles in light of the fact that 2 of his family members are ill, i.e. life is too short. He said they don't have anything to do with each other, those 2 subjects. Him with his legal battles has nothing to do with the illness of his father and his sister-in-law, and rightly so. They don't have anything to do with each other. Why should one impact or influence the other? He knows that anything he says will be analysed inside out, back to front, upside down, misconstrued. He has to be very careful what he says. He has to edit himself because he knows what you guys will do. When I say you guys, people that are anti-Harry and Meghan and are looking for ways to bring them down, i.e. the UK trash media. They don't stop. They will never stop. You know, through what Harry does, as long as he can continue to do it, I hope he really brings them down. I really do. They're disgusting. And then when we talk about money, William's income is virtually guaranteed, okay, as the direct heir and not the spare. His income for the rest of his life is virtually guaranteed, all things being equal. As the spare, Harry's income is not guaranteed, because if you look at Andrew and Charles, people think that kids do not have a good memory. Harry would have seen all of this growing up, okay? Andrew would have had to fend for himself. That's why you see him, you know, hear about him in the past doing dodgy business deals and getting himself into all kinds of financial trouble, because the people that he associates with are very unscrupulous. Andrew is not into charity work. I remember there was an interview with his ex-wife Sarah, and she said she was trying to encourage him to get into charity work. He's not interested. If it's not making him money, he's not interested. Okay, so he is in his 60s. He's still relying on his brother to financially support them. You know what William should be really grateful for? He should be grateful for the fact that his brother will never rely on him financially, because to me, it looks like William is a very mean-spirited person. He's not generous at all. So if Harry needed financial help, I guarantee you, just like Charles, William would never help him. So William needs to be grateful that his brother will never be a financial burden on him. He should support Harry in all his endeavours. He should encourage Harry to do what he's doing rather than be resentful of him. You know, people, they have a very single-minded way of looking at things when it comes to stuff like this. William is a very good advantage with Harry not being around. You know, but his concern is that Harry is more popular than him. I mean, some people just don't grow up. That's what I found in life. Some people are stuck in a mental age. Their bodies may mature physically, but mentally they're stuck. When times were good, when things were easy, when there were no responsibilities, they don't like change. They can't adapt well to change. And they're very resentful of people who can. You know, and in all of this, what I've observed is that the UK rewards laziness. If you dare to work hard, if you dare to show an ounce of productivity, they will knock that out of you. They don't encourage enterprise. They don't encourage hard work. And this is why when William, you know, they've announced this increase in finances, in profits for the royal family from the sovereign grant, everyone's okay with it. The minute that Meghan and Harry, it's, you know, revealed that they've signed a lucrative deal with, I don't know, some enterprise, media enterprise or whatever, it's like World War III has started. How dare they? How dare they earn more money? How dare they? What must they be thinking to earn money? Why should they be financially independent? Like I keep saying in these videos, we are not paying for Meghan and Harry. They are looking after themselves financially. They are providing for their children, for the futures of their children. And the world's gone mad. I said it before, the world has gone completely mad. You're happy to fork out for this royal family who haven't worked. As I said, Kate's gone on holiday. Holiday from what? She hasn't done anything. And, you know, I'm starting to believe, because you put it in the comments every week, this woman doesn't have cancer. I cannot say that. I cannot say that. I don't know. But every week it is becoming more and more clear that something is not as it should be. Cancer patients, from what I understand from you guys, don't have the strength to do these things. You know, going to Wimbledon or glossy head, or, you know, good for her. But just be truthful with us. The UK public would rather be lied to. You know, saying that Harry caused the rift by revealing things in Spare on the Netflix documentary to Oprah. They have a right of reply. They're not going to go to the papers and put their side of the story because they know that it will be twisted. They're not in the pockets of the UK media, so they have their own right of reply and they're despised for it. So like he said, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. Guys, if your thoughts were provoked in any way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet become a house guest, don't forget to hit subscribe and activate all of your notifications. I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching. At the beginning of the week, actually after I uploaded last week's video, I hit 4,000 subscribers. I'm truly humbled because you guys could do something else on a Sunday. But I'm truly humbled. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. I like doing these videos because it helps me to engage with you guys. You know, I think I've only met one subscriber. Yeah, and I talked about that about a month or so ago. But, you know, it'll be lovely to meet you guys one day. Because I see your names in the comments and, you know, we have little chats and stuff. But I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm really humbled that you take the time to watch these videos. And I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoy making them. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and you shall catch me in the next video.